It's time to look ahead here on the early edge. We look ahead to week 8. We're already at week 8, gentlemen. But I want to look to Thursday night football first. And Mike, I'm going to start with you with an early Thursday night football bet. Now we have a 2.5 point spread here. Might be 3 in some places, 43.5 point total, which might have shot up to 44, 45 and a half, or 44 and a half just in the last 15, 20 minutes. Mike, what's your play on this game?
I'm going to go over the total on this one. See, I know we talk about short weeks and not necessarily looking to overs often, but I like both of these teams offensively. You talk about Minnesota. Yes, they lost that game to the Philadelphia Eagles. Could have easily walked away with more points, though, in that game. When you've got a healthy receiving core with Jordan Addison and Justin Jefferson, that is a big deal for this offense. I think they're going to be able to push and be competitive, but I think that Justin Herbert's going to be able to do a lot of what we just witnessed Jalen Hurts do, throwing the football deep down the field to his complement of weapons as well. I think we get a competitive one back and forth. I set the number at 47, jumped over at 43 and a half. I think this ultimately closes around 45 and a half or 46. So I think there's still room to act now.
Larry, I do wish I got the 43.5 number. I still like the 44.5 to Mike's point, but talk to me about the side, because again, it's early in the week and early money starts to come in. And we've seen this line be 2.5 in some places and 3 in other places. So which part of this do you like? I guess it depends on which team you like.
Well, playing the Chargers as a small favorite did not work out for me yesterday when the Colts basically scored at will within about 2 minutes of taking over the ball. Every time I thought the Chargers were about to get back in the game, the Colts went down the field and scored on them. So I can't be on the Chargers laying points, especially with Joe Alt. I don't think he's going to come back on a short week. They're 1-3 since they lost their left tackle. And the Vikings, Mike is right. They only put up 22 points, but there was a controversial play with Hawkinson where maybe he did score the touchdown. They were in the red zone 6 times against the Eagles. They only came away with 1 touchdown. Carson Wentz threw for 313. All the weapons there are healthy. I got to lean with the Vikings getting a field goal.
I'm going to lean towards the Chargers -2.5. You can shop around and find under that field goal spread just to kind of play against that sentiment, to be honest, because the sky is falling in LA right now. Everything's going poorly. I will be keeping my eye on that injury report. Larry mentioned Joe Alt. He's so important on that offensive line, which they really built the identity of this team around, and it hasn't really been able to carry the water for them. So I like the Chargers to potentially bounce back against Carson Wentz, who I'm kicking myself for not fading. I had the write-up half written on the Eagles in SportsLine. It just kind of felt like he might turn into a pumpkin. And yes, he threw for 300 plus, but he also threw some awful interceptions. And I think Herbert can outduel him here. So leaning towards the Chargers side in a bounce back spot.
All right, let's go to a week side or a week 8 side or total that we want to maybe lock in right now. Danny, I'm going to stick with you here because I see your play on the Giants +7 NFC East battle. It's in Philadelphia. I just can't get yesterday out of my mind. I mean, I thought it was a pretty good game by the Giants. They should have won by double digits. And somehow the Giants can find a way to lose in just curious ways. But you still like the Giants. This is a big number here.
Yeah, we're not the mentally most astute team, but I do think my Giants are getting disrespected in the market a little bit. I mean, who do the Eagles deserve to lay 7 against? Have you guys been watching this Eagles team? Kevin Patullo is battling his way right now through this offense. And yes, they opened up a little bit with some explosive plays against the Vikings in London, but I'm not willing to back them to win by a touchdown or more against the division rival that just beat them easily. So yeah, they're going into the Lincoln Field here, and it's going to be a tough matchup. But I think the Giants can keep this competitive. They've already shown the ability to game plan for the Eagles, and I'm not so sure that the Eagles have figured things out. So give me the Giants on the touchdown spread.
Unclear who the Jets are going to start at quarterback between Justin Fields and Tyrod Taylor, and it doesn't really matter. When Sauce Gardner is hurt, Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall are also banged up. This team is at rock bottom. And now you're facing a Bengals team that has new life with Joe Flacco. And what I really like is they had extra rest coming off that huge win over the Steelers. And Al Golden is making big decisions on defense. He's benching vets. He's playing the young guys. The Bengals have new life. I got this at 4.5. Now I'm seeing 6.5 in the market. I will still play it anything less than a touchdown against the woeful Jets.
It is now 6.5. This is why we jump on lines early over at SportsLine, but 6.5 over at BetMGM. Anything under 7, says Larry Hartstein. All right, let's go to Mike, because this Bills game is interesting because we might have some injury news on the Carolina front. Of course, Bills coming off a bye. What do you like in this one, Mike?
I like Buffalo here. See, I think this is the biggest must-win spot there is. They dropped 2 consecutive games. They got the bye week to regroup. After the bye week, a big matchup with the Kansas City Chiefs. Huge playoff seeding implications now that Buffalo has lost those 2 games in a row. The head-to-head with Kansas City could very well decide where that postseason matchup that we all feel is inevitable occurs this season. So they cannot drop this game in a row. I think they come in focused, though. You talk about how they lost that game against Atlanta. The injury report was a disaster for them in that game and got worse during the game. Now you've had time to come back. I think they get a very clean injury report relative to what they've been dealing with. And ultimately, I think they take advantage of Carolina. 27th in EPA per play defensively. I think Buffalo rolls in this one to a double-digit win. Would lay it at 8, would lay it at 8.5. I have the number on this one at 12.5 personally.
Wow, that is a pretty big edge. And by the way, that -8 at BetMGM is -105. So the juice, pretty good there. Let's go to a week 8 side we're waiting on. Larry, I'm going to start with you. The Ravens coming off a bye, but you're waiting because we don't know who's healthy, right?
Well, waiting for confirmation on the injury, and I think we're going to get back Lamar Jackson, Ronnie Stanley, the fullback Patrick Ricard to help the running game, Roquan Smith, and Chidobe Awuzie. If all 5 of those guys look to be practicing this week, I'm going to be on them at anything less than a touchdown against the visiting Chicago Bears. You know, Chicago's on a great 4-game win streak. They're +13 in turnover margin during that game. You can't go +3 in turnovers every single week. Lamar coming back. The Ravens still believe they have a chance this year, and it starts on Sunday.
And staying in the AFC North, I'm looking at the Brownies +7.5, maybe, if I can get that hook. I like the 7, though, because we saw how stout that defense is, man. They're tough. Say what you will about Tua Tagovailoa and the Dolphins, who played awful, but the Browns are tough to play against. And they're taking on Drake May and the Patriots, who look excellent so far, a 5-2 start, but they haven't really played that many defenses. Some soft teams like the Panthers, the Raiders, the Saints. I think the Browns could give May some issues, so I'm taking that +7.
And I'm going to look at the Eagles here. I know Danny likes the Giants here. I like the way the Giants have played. I just like this spot for Philadelphia. They got the win against Minnesota. This is the game heading into a bye, which is critical for them because they have a very difficult schedule coming out of the bye, playing on the road at Green Bay and then Detroit. I think they get an extremely focused effort here. But like Danny, I do think that the market will think that the Giants are being disrespected a bit here. I think this bounces to a 6.5, maybe even a 6. And I think the game could be competitive for a lot of it. But what we saw happen in that game with the Giants against the Denver Broncos, I think Philly's going to have the ability to do something similar late and ultimately cover this number. So it's really about the spot and a little payback for what we just saw a few weeks ago. Give me Philly -6.5 later in the week after the market jumps on the New York Giants.